Welcome back, everybody, to another hopefully fact-filled episode of Murphy's Aquarium, the YouTube channel where we make the mistakes so you don't have to, hopefully. And today we want to talk about one of the probably most important things about having a saltwater aquarium, and that is the salt water in your aquarium. In fact, this channel is for those of you who want to be hands-on and do as much of this as you can on your own. Because hey, why else do it, right? It's a hobby. You want to get there and get your hands dirty. So I will say, you can go to your local fish store, otherwise known as the LFS, and purchase typically saltwater, pre-made. I will plug Something Fishy up by Allentown, Pennsylvania. Last I checked, and this was months ago, they sell salt water for, I believe, $1 a gallon. It's actually probably, I think that's a really good price, honestly. So that's an option. You can go to your local fish store, you can buy your salt water. This channel is for people who want to be a little more hands-on, so we're going to give you some ins and outs about how to mix your salt water. First thing you're going to need is salt. Now, don't think that you can go in your kitchen, grab the big black tall cylinder of salt, table salt, and throw it in your salt water and call it done. It's not going to work. That salt, it's salt, but salt water is not just salt. It's a lot of different minerals mixed in there, and you need a dedicated saltwater mix. I have two of them right here. This bucket is actually empty. This is what I started with, Instant Ocean. The other option that I've gone with, which is a little bit more premium brand, is the Red Sea salt. If you're just starting out, you're toe dipping, go with the Instant Ocean. It's fine. You need an airtight bucket to store your salt mix in. Because one of the things I did was I bought a bag, because, hey, I can buy this bag for $25 off of Amazon of Instant Ocean. And I can get it delivered, and I'll throw it in an airtight tote. One of those little airtight totes you buy from, like, one of your big box stores, your big department stores. It costs about, $20, $25 for one of them guys. And that'll be all I need. Well, wrong. Evidently, it wasn't airtight enough, because over time I developed these big, huge balls of like salt rock from where the moisture mixed with the salt and just turned it hard. It's not a good thing. It kind of, when you don't want that, because it throws your ratios off and you're not going to be able to mix very well, and it's just not a good thing. What else do you need? You need a bucket. Well, this one says RO on it, but still, you need something to put the water in. For this demonstration, I'm gonna show you in a 5-gallon bucket that I'm not gonna fill completely up, because the water needs to stay in the bucket. And if you fill it to the tippy top with 5 gallons, which will help you mix things right, but there ain't no way you're gonna be able to transport this bucket anywhere and keep the water in the bucket. Ask me how I know. So here we go, bucket. And/or other thing, I've used totes. But what else do you need? We got a bucket, we have salt. Oh yeah, we need the water in the salt water. So what do you need for that? Well, you need basically pure water. So how do you get that? Typically, you're going to, if you're the hands-on type, you're probably going to want to buy some sort of RODI system, which stands for remote osmosis deionization. And I think we'll get into that in another video, but suffice it to say, the impurities in your water are measured with a measurement called TDS, total dissolved solids. Whatever those solids are, it could be biological matter, it could be, who knows. And your tap water, like my tap water, could have upwards of 300 TDS. So this RO system that I have here, it takes that 300 TDS water, takes it down to 0. And I've done some modifications to this system, so it's not completely stock. But I mean, other options you could, and I've never tried this. You can go buy RODI water from your local fish store. Of course, at that point, you might as well just spring for the saltwater with a small upcharge, I'm sure. Or you could go to like a grocery store that has a filtered water system, and supposedly they're really cheap. They can be really cheap, but that's a pain in the butt. It's doable. Got to do what you got to do. But, you know, it's not particularly time-wise economical. Though, if I understand, the water was pretty cheap. Is it zero TDS RODI type water? No idea. Never tested it. But, hey, if you want a toe dip, this could be an option. Another option for RODI is if you go onto Amazon, there is something called the RO Buddy. It is probably the best deal out there. You can get a 100 gallon per day system, which is 3 stages, which is probably your bare minimum. They're usually, RO systems are rated in stages, and it's like $80. And I ran one for years. It did not have the DI part, the deionization part. So my water rating, I think, was anywhere from 10 to 20 total dissolved solids, from 300 to 600. So worked perfectly. I've still got it here somewhere. In fact, I've got a video. One of these days I'll have to post it and edit it where I talk about it. Anyway, those are some options for you. All right. Water, salt, a vessel that's down there on the floor. What else are you going to need? Well, you're going to need a way to mix it. And they suggest, there's various suggestions out there. You can go and use a spare AC circulation pump. The whole point is, you know, and you don't use air. Yeah, don't use a air bubbler. You don't want to do that. I forget why they didn't really go into it, but there was a cautionary tale on YouTube somewhere. But yeah, all this guy, all he's going to do is you put this in the bucket before you put the water in, because the water can be very cold, and it will mix your water up. So you dump your salt in. This churns the water and mixes it for you, so you don't have to sit there and like this. Ooh, who wants to do that? Nobody I know. Automated mixing machine. You're also going to want to kind of put it in like this on the bucket, on your bucket wall, so that water goes in and goes out. All right, it's in my bucket. What else are you going to need? You need a way to measure your salt. So typically, evidently, there's a formula out there, and Instant Ocean puts it right on there. Red Sea, not so much. And they say 1/2 cup per gallon of water. So a 5-gallon bucket, that is 2 of these and 1 of these. So 2.5 cups. Now, I will say the first time I shot this, I didn't fill up the water quite as much as I needed to. I didn't fill it up the top, probably like 2 inches from the top of the bucket. And I put 2 cups in, and I definitely was, when I measured my salt content, it was not quite what it needed to be, so I needed to adjust it. I will suggest don't grab your wife's, because she will get angry. Or your husband's, if you're a female, I guess. You know, I shouldn't be making gender assumptions here. Bad me, right? Bad Brent. So, just don't use your significant other's nice cups, measuring cup set, because they will get angry with you. Now, you might recognize this, because we've got all the ingredients we need, right? We've got ways to measure the salt. We've got the salt, we've got the water, we've got the bucket it goes in. But you need to be able to measure the salinity of the water after you mix it, because saltwater fish do not do well with sudden changes in saltwater content. But if you're like me and you started with a 13-gallon, micro reef aquarium, 5-gallon, even couple gallons is going, of wrongly mixed water is going to cause an issue. It's going to either make your salt go way up, go way down. It's just, you need to avoid it. So this is what I like to use now. I've got all kinds of different measuring mechanisms. I've got a digital salinity meter from Hannah that works okay, but I've kind of learned not to trust it because I don't know when it needs to be calibrated. I don't know how off it is because they're not guaranteed to be 100% accurate. Now this guy will never lose calibration because he's not a digital device, right? You just have to worry, not break it because it's fragile. It's a tube of glass, for crying out loud. Don't drop it. Hopefully I didn't jinx myself. So I covered this in another video, one of my first videos. Oh yeah, FYI, Murphy's Law of hydrometers is whenever you're using a hydrometer, the scale that you need to read is always turned away from you. FYI. Now, the hydrometer does have one drawback. It is temperature dependent. I believe this tropic marine is calibrated to show this specific gravity. That's what this is measuring, which is a comparison of non-salt water to salt water. And non-salt water is a specific gravity of 1.0 because that is the reference liquid. You get this guy, you put him in the water. If that water's not at the temperature this was calibrated, was calibrated to use, then it's, your reading is going to be off. So I believe this is meant to be used at 77 degrees. And if your water's, say, at 74.2, this reading is going to make it seem more dense than it is, because colder water is denser. Just like colder air sinks, hotter air, which is less dense, rises. Same thing with water. So that is why temperature is a factor. So you're going to need a handy dandy thermometer that's hopefully, if this is a grill thermometer, it'll hopefully be, I use it because I can see it very well. But the point being is, once you mix the water, you put that in there, you take a reading, you need to check the temperature so you can apply a correction and find out what your real reading is. And I will plug, there's a site I use called Hamas's Reef, which we will do a screen share in the video later on, and I will show you, how a couple of different calculators he has, and one of them is a salinity correction calculator just for this. So those are the basics. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and mix some water up. I'm going to run my RO system for about 26 minutes, which will almost completely fill up my bucket. Once it's full, I will dump the salt in it, and away we go.